The election is Tuesday, Michigan's primary election, and it's like none that we've seen in recent history. And one of those working real hard is our state representative, Dr. John Bizon, who hopes to become our state senator, Dr. John Bizon. Good morning, John.
Good morning. Great to be with you this morning, Tim. Thank you.
Nice to have you here. You look like you've been getting some exercise.
You bet. We've been out there on the doors. We've been out there putting up signs. We've been working some reasonable hours trying to make sure that everything gets done. And when you have an election, the thing that you get the very shortest on, of course, is time. There's just never enough time at the end of a campaign to do everything you want to do, and so you have to prioritize and do the most important things first.
Do you like have a countdown clock that, 168 hours and 7 minutes?
No, I don't. We're going to be waiting for the people to have their say, and we'll abide by the will of the people.
19th Senate District is 3 counties: Calhoun, Berry, Ionia. Now, you currently represent most of, or a good portion of Calhoun.
We do have a good portion of Calhoun County, and as you know, Calhoun County is the population center of the district.
Right. There's not a lot of people in Berry County, with the exception of Hastings, and not a lot of people in Ionia County either.
And that's why they have 2 counties up there. It's a very, very expansive area in order to get the 90,000 people you need to make up a House seat. The Senate seat is representing 300,000 people.
Oh, okay.
And so it's a larger area, but the concentration of population is down here in Calhoun.
So then have you been mostly up there talking to people, or down here, or a mixture of both? What's your schedule been like?
Well, early in the campaign, we stayed mainly up north. We did have a presence here in Calhoun County. We wanted to make sure that the people here didn't think that we were forgetting them. But the people up in Berry and Ionia counties don't know me nearly as well as the people down here. And it seems like many times after the people get to know you, they like you a lot more than when you're a faceless name on a ballot.
Yeah, and conversely, your opponent, Mike Calton, is better known up there in those 2 counties because he was a state representative there for, I believe, 3 terms.
Yes, he was.
Until he was term limited. And you were not term limited yet, but you had one more House term if you wanted to run for it, but have chosen to take the opportunity now with Mike Knopf's being term limited and stepping down, retiring, I guess. I don't know if he'd like me saying retiring, but he's served all that he's allowed to serve in the State House.
I think that he is looking forward to stepping it down a little bit and relaxing a little bit more and perhaps doing some traveling.
Yeah.
Being in the legislature obviously keeps you running quite a little bit. And to some degree, it depends upon how good a job you want to do, how well you want to represent the people, how many meetings you can make it out to, and make sure that you have a presence.
There are the issues, the political spots that we hear, you and Mike Calton, basically one difference is in energy policy. Your spot says that you voted to make energy jobs options more available to people?
Well, actually, I'm dedicated to protecting the energy customers and trying to reduce their bills, and not the monopolies, energy companies, CEOs who pull down huge salaries of their own. We need to look out for the people rather than for the corporations, and it's whatever it takes to make sure that our bills that we need to live on. We have so many seniors out here who are on fixed incomes, and we need someone looking out for them. And all too often I'm up in Lansing, and we just don't see the lobbyists as being the very best voice for some of our taxpayers.
Now, the commercials regarding the energy policy and energy bills, they center on a vote of a bill that was adopted. I believe Senator Knopf actually was a proponent of it, and it was voted and approved. You voted against it. Why did you vote against it? What would you rather have seen?
I'd love to see a little bit of competition in the market, and I think that there is some advantage to having competition, even in the energy market. One of the arguments that the large monopoly energy companies are going to be talking about is need to have this reserve power in case people decide that they don't want to stay with the people that they're with and want to go to a different source. But under the new bill that was written, if you have an alternate energy provider, they're going to be required to have that reserve moving into the future. And so that really takes away the argument as to, wow, we need to have this big infrastructure that we need to maintain simply because we need to provide service, if we as a state are requiring them to have that backup capacity.
Your opponent, Mike Calton, said that he supports having a reliable reserve power, and that that by adopting the bill that we did, it does protect us if all of a sudden, we have severe usage of utilities and electricity,
And that's the days that they struggle on, the utilities struggle on. And yes, everybody wants good power, but the question becomes, where do you want it from? Do you want it simply from the companies here in the state of Michigan, or is it a commodity that flows across lines?
We've talked a lot about roads in Michigan. That seems to be a hot button issue with the voters. Roads are not in good shape, and even though a lot's been done to try and allocate funds, we haven't seen a lot of that yet. In fact, your opponent said 3 years ago we passed a lot of things that we still have 3 years left on that, but he's disappointed with what we've seen so far. Are you disappointed with the progress we've made?
We have put a lot of money towards roads in these last 3 years. We put over $1 billion towards our roads. And yes, I'm disappointed that our roads are not better. But as opposed to my opponent, who simply wants to throw more money at the problem, I think that we need to change the technologies, as you and I talked about last time through. We need to use better products. We need to make sure that the warranties that we have are enforced. We need to make sure that the money that we're spending is used appropriately. And sometimes I truly feel that, as I said last time, this is more of a jobs program than a roads program. We have all the same potholes that keep popping up.
I think a lot of times, though, these like county governments, for instance, they're charged with doing so much that they're looking at any way they can do to get more bang for their buck. And a lot of times maybe that means not as good of materials or not as good of work, or they give the low bid to a company that maybe isn't going to do the best long term. What's the solution there?
I think that we need to look to the people who do it the best and have the reputation for doing it the best, and see what they are doing and incorporate that down here. And again, we talked about a meeting that I had with the road commissioners up in Berry County, and they offered to invite our people up there so that they can see how they address the roads. And these are roads professionals that seem to be doing a good job if you run on many of the Berry County roads. They do have roads that are this mixture of clay and crushed stone that leaves you with a pretty nice surface to drive on, much better than an asphalted potholed road. And the problem is you get your car a little bit dusty, and I think you mentioned that was good for the car washes in the area.
Yeah, open a car wash in Berry County. Well, maybe now, there's not too many people up there. But I guess one of the main things that's being discussed, though, is how we fund roads. We collect money through gas tax and through registration fees and other licensing and all that stuff, and then it gets split up into basically 3 pots. I think there are like 1,400 townships in this state, and darn near all of them, all but 140 of those 1,400 kick in some money into their counties and kind of a shared let's get the roads fixed thing. Is that the way that it should work, or should the counties just figure out a way to get it all done? I mean, how are we going to get these rural and township roads in better shape, like the one I live on?
Well, one of the things that we would love to do is put more money towards our roads, because the people down in Ohio, Illinois do put more dollars towards the roads than we do. As a legislature, earlier this session, we identified some $402 million in spending that we thought would be better spent, prioritized towards the roads, rather than what we're spending them on in government. And there was a howl put up by administration. There was all the bureaucrats who say you can't cut these programs. But we as a legislature, a conservative group, said we have these $402 million that we think would be better spent on roads, and we couldn't get that passed through the legislature. There weren't enough of us conservative voices to say we're going to do this.
I guess my question is how are we going to get townships that aren't putting out special assessments or millages, and therefore we're just patching potholes year after year? How are we going to get those roads up to par?
We need to count on our counties, because it's the counties that have road departments. Townships don't have road departments. They don't have the equipment. They don't have the expertise. They don't have the engineers, and counties do. And so we're going to have to rely on our counties to help us out.
Right, but then
they do need funding.
They do the work. That's the funding question, though. If the county has to do X amount of roads and they don't have, but half the money, how is it going to get done?
Well, we're going to have to get them more money, won't we? And you can go the route of hiking gas taxes and have bigger millages, or you can go down the road of cutting other services in government. And I would offer that the latter, the cutting other services that are not as valuable, is probably the way we need to go in order to get more money.
Certainly seems to be a priority with the voters and the citizens that, hey, let's get this fixed, for heaven's sakes. I can't afford all these repairs on my car.
I can understand that. And, auto no fault is another area that I think that we have had some significant differences between.
State Representative Dr. John Bizon is our guest, running for the state Senate seat now in the 19th District. Mike Calton will be his opponent. So two of them in that race. Boy, we've got quite a primary here. It's I don't remember this many contested races on both sides of the aisle.
Oh, it is. This is a very different year than many. A lot of voters will stay home for primary elections, largely because there's a lack of candidates. And if you have only one candidate running for a seat, then the question becomes, why bother to go and vote when there's only one candidate there? But this year, we have 4 candidates for governor just on the Republican side, 3 on the Democratic side.
2 libertarians.
And so you have just a lot of people that are running. And even the people in Lansing have noticed that this year is so different that we anticipate the numbers to be up much, much higher in people going to the polls this time than in prior elections, simply because they have been so contested.
Yeah. You brought up auto insurance reform. You voted for the bill that failed. And Mike Calton says that he would not have voted for that particular bill. Where do we go now? I mean, what's next? If you're elected to the state Senate, what are you going to do to get us some auto insurance reform, and what will that look like?
Well, I like the original tenets that you take care of the injured. We want to get people who are sick better. But as we talked about last time, everyone who has touched this system has learned how to maximize their return from the auto no-fault dollars that we are paying. And as a result of that, we have this system where it's simply too expensive for our citizens, for our students, for our seniors. It gives you coverage even if you don't buy insurance. And, we really need to sit down and look at it from top to bottom. I've been a huge proponent for that comprehensive overhaul for the system. But you have powerful lobbies on all sides that don't want to see anything done. And they are going to vote against this bill. And when you ask, how are we going to get around that? I am thinking that perhaps the way we need to go is to make this a ballot proposal so that we will structure it and send it to the voters and say, take a look at this, see if you like this, see if you want to go down this rabbit hole.
Yeah, I think there's like $20 billion in a catastrophic fund or something right now, and we don't need anywhere near that much. We don't use anywhere near that much from year to year, which kind of begs the question, you know, when you're trying to figure out where to get more dollars for roads or maybe more dollars for education, where are some areas that you might look at?
You know, we spend $1 out of every $3 in government here at the state level on healthcare. I want to say that the HHS budget, the Health and Human Services budget overall, is nearly 45% of every dollar that we spend. And you always have to go back and look, what is our return on investment? And we don't get a lot of that information prior to voting on many of the bills, but I think that that is something that is essential for us. They do that out in Nebraska. They have a special office there in Nebraska that is legislative, and it helps legislatures and legislators to get some idea as to what are going to be the benefits and disadvantages of spending these dollars on this project. And it seems like having something like that would be terribly useful here in the state of Michigan to me as a legislator, so that you can go through and you can say, we've got a great return on investment on this program over here. Well, you know, it's costing us jobs, it's costing us money, income into the state, and do we want to continue down this path or not?
And conversely, if you cut a program or cut something in the budget, what will be the return on that? Will it end up costing more to make the cuts, or will it actually save money?
And we need statisticians, we need economists to give us some of those answers that right now we are missing.
Well, would you consider drafting a bill to form something like that?
You bet I would. I'd love to have something like that to help us out.
I mean, we've kind of got that in the federal government, you know, where we have, you know, people crunching numbers and trying to figure out stuff that I don't know if lawmakers actually ever have time to read any of it, let alone the bills, but that's, I think, a good idea. Dr. Bizon, I wish you the best of luck in your election on Tuesday, and we'll talk to you again soon because you'll still be our representative through the end of the year, regardless of what happens.
Sounds great. I'm looking forward. This has been an enjoyable experience. Thank you so much, Tim, for having me on today.